Hello, SquirrelTribe. So listen, I came across this article. It's the most random article in the history of articles, probably, about this chain, this restaurant chain that was closing down. So of course, I'm going to click on it to see what the restaurant chain is. And when it says chain, I'm thinking something massive, like a Chick-fil-A, a Wendy's, Applebee's, because I see all those closing everywhere. Hooters filed bankruptcy. Those are closing everywhere. So I click on this thing thinking it's going to be something huge, something massive, right? And it's not. It is two restaurants that they're considering a chain, because technically more than one, I guess, makes a chain. And they are closing down after more than 20 years in service. And the reason this is important is because of why they are closing down, because this is why you're going to see more and more businesses closing down. Now, this isn't the economy is going to shit and everybody be scared, run for the hills, hoard everything, whatever kind of video. But this is definitely let's pay attention to the things that are happening in the background kind of video. Because right now we're talking about what President Trump has done with prescription drug prices that's going to affect literally everybody that takes any sort of prescription drugs, whether you're on regular insurance, you're on Medicare, you're on Medicaid, whatever. There's the whole tariff issue or lack of tariff issue right now between the United States and China specifically, at least for the next, I believe it's 90 days. Those things are going to be forefront, right? Everybody's going to be talking about that. But what a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that there's a lot of private equities that are going out and basically buying up these businesses that are either on the brink of closing or on the brink of bankruptcy or whatever else. We talked about it with Joann's. We talked about it with Bed Bath & Beyond, these private equity companies that come in and save the day is what we're going to call it. They fly in like they're doing something great and they buy these places up. That's what they did with Family Dollar. That's the last one we talked about, how Dollar Tree bought Family Dollar in 2015 for just under $10 billion. And then this year, 2025, in the dead of night, I guess, Dollar Tree sold Family Dollar for $1 billion to a private equity firm, who is now going to make a bunch of changes, hook them up with Uber, all this stuff that we've already talked about. But when I saw this thing and I saw the words Bureau of Labor Statistics kind of jumped out at me. So I wanted to bring it to your attention because there's a lot of places that as locals, wherever it is that you live, you're a local. You're going to go to this one specific restaurant because you love it. It's been there for decades. Your parents went there. Your grandparents went there. Your kids had their first job there. Those kind of restaurants. And that's exactly what this one is that is closing down. And that to me is why this video is important, because we're not talking about the big conglomerates that have taken a shit ton of money and done not very well with it and now have filed bankruptcy or gotten bailed out, whatever. These are the mom and pops, the mom and pop locations. We are consistently talking about how we want to focus on them, keep them thriving because, screw conglomerates and these big guys, right? So this article came out and it's a Mexican restaurant. It says here, beloved Mexican restaurant chain closing all locations. So again, I'm thinking it's going to be something huge. Was it Taco Bell? Is it Frontera? Whatever else, right? And it says that this place is closing after 2 decades of service. And then it talks about how the restaurant industry is a volatile one, which it really is, which is a whole nother reason for this video, because we went out to eat, what day was it? Yesterday for breakfast. My husband and I went out and got breakfast at one of our favorite places. It's in Miramar Beach in Florida. It's called Two Birds. Absolutely friggin' love it. Some of the freshest, cleanest food you'll ever get. Best service, right? So we go in there and we're talking to one of the servers, and she was talking about how there are people who don't understand timing, like when you're waiting for a table or you're waiting for a to-go order and things like this. They don't understand timing. They get mad that it might take 30 minutes for a to-go order, not considering the fact that there's in a restaurant full of people and you're using one kitchen. It's not like there's a separate kitchen for your to-go service and a separate kitchen for your in-house service. A lot of times that's not the case unless you are a big, massive restaurant, right? So we're talking about it. And I told her, I said, I personally think that the first job every single person has should be in customer service somehow. But I think every single person should wait tables at least one time in their lives. That way you understand what it's like to be on the receiving end of how people are treated at restaurants and really understand things. I waited tables for the longest when I was younger. I absolutely loved it. My daughter, when she is 16, she will be getting a job at a restaurant as a hostess, more than likely. Plenty of other places she could get a job, but I want her to fully understand the service industry. And the best way to do that is in a restaurant, because a lot of people don't understand exactly how it works. And a lot of people are either for tips or against tips. That's one of the biggest divides, I swear, in customer service, right? There are a lot of places that are paid hourly, right? When we went to Seattle, a couple of years ago, if you guys were here on the channel, then you saw what it was like in Seattle. We wanted to show our daughter this country before she turned 18 and could make her own decision on where she wanted to go, where she wanted to live. We wanted her to see as much as humanly possible. So we drove all over the country for 2 summers in a row just to show her. We stayed in a van, we stayed at KOAs, and we stayed at Harvest Host places and things like that. And Seattle was one of the worst, best experiences because it was crazy. It was during the height of COVID, obviously. So everything was just off, right? But in Seattle, the amount of homelessness and drug use, and it was just absolutely crazy what Seattle was like. But while we were there, I remember telling her, let's go eat at a restaurant and see what it's like. And the server at our restaurant said that he got paid $19 an hour, so we didn't have to tip. They were in a non-tip location. I don't know if it's just that restaurant or all of Seattle, but it was a non-tipping because they were paid more hourly, $19 an hour. And I'm thinking to myself, God, I would hate to wait tables for $19 an hour, because as a server, when I was waiting tables a long time ago, 2008, 2009 timeframe, I could in 3 hours time make $500, $600, $700 on lunch or dinner just based off tips alone, not my $2.66 an hour. When you look at it that way, $19 an hour is just, how do you live on that, right? That's what a lot of people say. How do you live on that? But you have people out there who don't understand the difference between a tip location and a non-tip location. The whole thing of you shouldn't have to tip your servers, that's up to the employer, true. But a tipped location, those servers generally are going to work hard or give you better service because they know that their livelihood depends on your tips, right? And they will make more in a tip culture than they will in a non-tip culture. But that has had a massive impact on a lot of these restaurants that have closed over the last couple of years, especially after COVID, where people weren't going out and things like that. And you've gotten so used to ordering for pickup or to go, DoorDash, Uber Eats, things like that, or you drive through and pick it up, and nobody really looks at restaurants the same way they used to. So now you have the restaurant industry almost on the brink of death, if you will, because you have the price of the foods have gone up like substantially. The cost of running a business has gone through the roof. You've got your insurance, your leases, your electricity, your gas, your water, everything. Not to mention the cost to keep your employees, whether it's to keep them at a low hourly rate, but you have to keep workman's comp, you have to keep the 401ks, you have to keep all these different things. It's gotten a little bit crazy. So when I read this thing here, this article, and it's talking about what has happened over the last couple months with the industry jobs, I'm not surprised that these places are closing. So this says, according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is of course, via the National Restaurant Association, the NRA, they said eating and drinking places added 16,600 jobs in April on a seasonally adjusted basis. Because you got to think, you have spring break going. Same thing as like over Christmas, over Thanksgiving, you see these places that are hiring extra for seasonal. And then at the end of the season, deuces, you have no job anymore, right? Restaurants are the same way. They want to make sure they have enough cooks, enough servers, enough bussers, enough valet, enough whatever. So in April, they added 16,600 jobs, right? They said in March, they added 30,000 jobs. So you're at, what is that? 46,000 jobs in March and April, which sounds like a great, great thing. But then after all that is done, 66,000 jobs are lost. So you're technically down a net 19,000 jobs. That's 19,000 people who had service industry jobs who now have nothing, no longer service industry jobs. Those restaurants that were employing them are probably closing down, things like that. So when you see these mom and pop places like the chain that was closing, it's in Texas, it's 2 places called Fernando's Mexican Cuisine. It's a sign of what to me is happening economy-wise, but with restaurants, with service industries, with things like that. You have people who don't want to go out to eat anymore because they're on the health conscious kick and they'd rather cook at home. You have people who aren't willing, like I said, to pay that extra tip price or whatever else. And you're going to see, I personally believe, again, this is generally speaking my opinion when I talk about things like this, you're going to see more of these smaller locations closing down, but more of the chains being able to withstand everything because they've been around so much longer. So when I tell you guys that I think it's important to go out and shop local, to dine local, I really truly mean it, because when the smaller establishments start to close down, you don't really want to be stuck with the places that everybody and their mama goes to. You want those small, homey, knows your name when you walk in, like cheers, right? Norm, like you want that kind of thing. And with the way, I don't want you to say the way our economy is going, but the way we mentally think about restaurants and tip culture, it's hurting us in the long run. Probably absolutely no point to this whole entire thing. It's just a conversation I wanted to have with y'all because, again, as somebody who's waited tables, I think it would suck if you didn't have that ability to go out and interact with your server, to go out and just, grab a meal with a friend, go have a drink with your spouse or your significant other or whatever. Take a night off from having to cook if you're a mom with the kids and all that other stuff. You don't want to wash the dishes. Having these restaurants to go to me is very important, and it is a sign of good financial times at the same time. But anyway, that was it. I'm very curious how people feel about the tip culture. And like I said, I've talked about it numerous times. I personally, if I can't afford to tip somebody, I'm not going to go out to eat at that point. I will find ways to cook at home. I think that if you go out to eat, you should be willing and able to tip your servers based off the service, which we have also talked about, not based off your total. Because if I order a $100 steak and you order a $20 burger, that's the same amount of service from the server. Why are you tipping for the 100 versus the 20? That's a whole nother topic. But I just thought it was interesting how every time I open up my computer and look at stuff, you see this is closing, this is going out of business, this is happening. And it is a sign, obviously, of financial times, but it's also a sign of where we are, what we find most important. And I think for a lot of people right now, it's not tipping. The thought process is that if you're gonna go to a place, you shouldn't have to tip. And it's not because of restaurants, it's because everybody else who's adding these little stupid ass tip things onto all of the transactions. McDonald's added a tip thing. What? You've lost your mind, McDonald's. But I think unfortunately, the crappy few are hurting it for the ones who actually rely upon it and deserve it. And it should be based on, right? Anyway, SquirrelTribe. Random, but that's how we do it over here. I love y'all immensely, and I hope you're having a fabulous day. And I'd like to know if you've ever worked at a restaurant in your life. Do you think it's an important job to have? That's all. Okay, goodbye.